Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Fifer, served up by Wendy's on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan. Download the Wendy's app today.
Welcome in. Steve Sparky Fifer with you. Charlie using other side of the glass to broadcast live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Day 2 of the new fan lineup. Really, really, really enjoying the new fan lineup. I got to tell you. Enjoying it to the point where I normally would wake up at like 6:30, and now I'm getting up the last 2 days at 5:30. And do you know what I've realized?
What's that?
These people that wake up super early, like that don't have to, but decide they want to and whatever, like you can get quite a bit of work done, in that hour. Like I don't wake up my kids till 6:30. So like 5:30 to 6:30, I listen to the start of the show for Inside Wisconsin Sports with Josh and Trevor. And I'm doing work. I sent like 8 emails this morning between like 5:30 and 6:30 before I got my kids going for school. I got a lot of work done in that 1 hour because it's a quiet house. I mean, she's getting ready to go to work because she has to be to work at 6:30. But
you're one of those people that just doesn't like to sleep in general. It feels like if you're a person like me who enjoys their sleep, it's so much fun to wake up at like 5:30 and be like, oh, I can sleep for another 2 hours and then go back to sleep. That's the joy of waking up at 5:30.
I do that when I'm up at like 3 a.m. Oh, I can go back to sleep for a couple more hours.
That's 3 a.m.
Yes, I can go back to sleep for a couple more hours.
And then you wake up at like the crack of dawn.
5:30 and away we go. Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. I know. I was telling her, I'm like, I kind of like this. I may do this going forward. She's like, what's wrong with you? I wouldn't want to get up this early if I didn't have to. I'm like, yeah,
she's right. Yeah.
Getting stuff done, like I kind of enjoy it. So I might just stay on this whole get up early thing. Coming up on today's show, lots to get to. Matt Perkins, Believe in Badgers. Last year, during the football season on this show, we had a deal with Matt Perkins and Believe in Badgers, and all the former Badgers, Matt Bernstein and all the guys that they have on that podcast, they had somebody on every week different from that podcast throughout the Badger season. And today, I totally forgot all about it. And Charlie's like, hey, we haven't talked to our Believe in guys. And I'm like, oh, good point. So Matt Perkins will join us coming up at 2:40. We'll get his thoughts on this Badger fiasco thing, on an interesting tweet that we're going to get to here in the first segment. Talking about increase in spending from each Big Ten school, not how much they're spending, but the increase in spending, and some interesting reactions to that tweet. So we'll get to that. We'll bring on that with Matt Perkins as well. Plus, at 3:20, Rick Schlesinger, Brewers president of business operations, will join us as we are inching our way closer to playoff baseball with the Milwaukee Brewers. They're on the verge of clinching the number 1 seed in the NL and the number 1 overall seed in baseball. That's a beautiful thing. And you've got a couple more games here in San Diego. Then you got a set against the Reds, and that's it. That's the season. All done. And then you sit and wait through the wild card round, and then we go for playoff baseball. So we'll get Rick Schlesinger on. Maybe he can tell us some of the fun stuff coming for the playoffs for the Brewers. That comes up at 3:20. Andrew Wagner, Forbes Sports Brewers writer, presented to you by Focus Baseball. Fall minicamps going on right now. Go to focusbaseball.com if you're still interested in getting your kids some lessons or signing up for some of the minicamps. Focusbaseball.com. He'll join us at 4:20. Give us his thoughts on what we saw last night between the Brewers and the Padres. And then got to talk about Bruce Zimmerman. 1 in how many thousand in this state do you think know who this dude is?
Probably 3, 4.
1 in 4 know who this dude is?
No, 4 in 1,000.
4 in 1,000.
Yeah.
I think that's even off. I'd say 1 in 100,000 maybe know who this dude is. But we'll talk about him with Andrew Wagner coming up at 4:20. I started talking about Badgers. Now I know, like I debated this with Charlie before the show. I was like, I don't feel like we should be leading with Badgers, like because again, sports talk and me, guy who's been doing this forever. Yes, Packer fan base is the biggest fan base, right? So programmers will tell you, program directors, talk Packers, talk Packers, talk Packers. I get it. That's what most people want to hear about is Packers. Fine. Then after that, then it's Brewers, then it's Bucks, and then maybe you get to Badgers. And maybe Badgers are even with Bucks, whatever. But there's a significant drop-off from Packers, Brewers, and then getting to the Badgers. But the Badgers have been so bad from between last year and now what we've watched here the last couple of weeks, and they were expected to be bad this year. And then you've got people chanting for Luke Fickell. Yes, we saw what Barry Alvarez said, but it didn't make the rundown today. We will get to the Barry Alvarez comments tomorrow on this show. Have no fear. But I want to ask this question because while people want to chant for Luke Fickell to be fired, I get it. I don't think it's happening. But I understand why you want him fired, because this is the worst the Badgers have looked, some people are saying, since the Don Morton era. Might be a stretch, but either way, it's a complete disaster. They don't look good at all. They don't look good, like, physically when you look at them. Do they look as athletic as the teams that they're playing now? Just think about that going forward, right? They're not going to look like Alabama, but even against Maryland, did they look like they had the same type of athletes as Maryland had on the field in that game, Charlie?
Nope, not one bit. Did not
That's
seem
recruiting,
like it.
right?
Mm-hmm. You would say it's recruiting, but I think also at the same time, what incentive do you have for these athletes to go to these schools? I think Maryland and schools like Rutgers and some of these other small schools in the Big Ten have done better jobs at enticing people to come to their universities. Maryland has had a few years of really good recruiting classes, especially on their defense, because of the way that they've been able to sell their school too, and the benefits that come with going to a team like Maryland. Doesn't seem like Wisconsin is really giving the same kind of elevator pitch that these other small schools that could be in the same position as them are making.
You know, the thing about it is money speaks. Money speaks volumes for everything else. Now, the nice thing about the Big Ten is, well, used to be the nice thing about the Big Ten is, everybody is playing in cold weather at certain parts of the calendar, right? And there's no recruiting advantage for going to some warm weather city. Well, that's out the window now because you have USC, you have UCLA. Oregon's not necessarily warm, but it's still West Coast. It's Nike money. It's Phil Knight. It's all that. So you're not going to compete with that money, obviously, either. But this tweet was put out, and I had it brought up to my attention from somebody else on Twitter. And I replied back, thanks. Again, listen, I will always appreciate you guys, girls, whatever, tweeting at me, DMing me, stories that you see that you're like, oh, I wonder if Sparky saw this. Boom, send it. Sometimes I will. Sometimes I won't. I got one dude, Gerard, who we've known for years, who used to call in all the time. He DMs me 3, 4, 5 times a day on stories, random things that he'll see throughout the day. And sometimes I'm like, oh, didn't see that. That's good. Oh, didn't see that either. That's good. I can't be on 20 or 24/7, especially now with what we have for our lineup and everything else. Like, I'm super busy. So I appreciate all of that. So if you all see something, you're like, hey, this would be fun for Sparky to talk about. I wonder if he saw it. Boom, send it. You never know. And in this instance, I'm glad it was sent to me from Steve Collins and sent it over. So this here is from a website I've never heard of in my life. It has 16.9 thousand followers. Big Ten information and news. Father and husband providing Big Ten information and news, established in July of 2008. So with that background being said, let me read to you what this dude said. Wisconsin football, a school that has not invested in football. Folks may wonder, why did Wisconsin go from winning conference titles under Brett Bielema to facing a potential 2-win season in 2025? The answer is rather easy. They're not a well-funded football program. I used the Knights database and extracted the percentage increase in football spend for the 14 Big Ten schools. 4 Pac-12 schools are not included in this post. Wisconsin is the least funded football program in the Big Ten from an increase in football spend perspective from 2005 to the 2024 reporting cycles. The lack of care to have a well-funded football program has come back to haunt the university. You can go all the way back to when Brett Bielema was a head coach at Wisconsin, and there were problems of underfunding. Coaches who then would leave because they would get paid more elsewhere, and Brett left because he couldn't keep coaches. Those are both facts. Fast forward to today, and you have Wisconsin as a bottom-tier football program in the Big Ten. If that hurts your feelings reading it and want to lash out in a comment about it, feel free to do so. But the anger should be towards the leadership at the university for allowing this to happen. And today's world of college football, a football program that is not well funded is not going to win many games. Now, again, before I read these numbers, he said that these numbers that he has spans from 2005 to 2024 and the increase that they've put into their football program in spending in that time frame. Okay. Do you know who's doing really, really well right now?
Who's that?
Kurt Cignetti, head coach at Indiana.
He is, yeah.
They're doing really well.
Brought in a couple transfer quarterbacks.
Had like 59,000 kids or 52,000, something. It was over 50,000 kids at this last game, right? And he's arrogant. He's cocky, condescending. He don't give a damn. I'm just going to tell you, we're going to beat you. We're going to beat everybody. Put them up. Let's go, right?
And that's despite people kind of talking down on them before the season, saying that they weren't going to recreate what they did last year.
Can't do it again, right? Indiana University has a percentage increase of 498.4%. Now, in fairness, this Twitter account does not give you the numbers of where these programs were spending in 2005 or whatever, when this thing it starts, to where they are now in 2004, right? So the starting standpoint number of spending for Indiana may have been way below Wisconsin, right? So Wisconsin spending may be top 5, whatever, in 2005. So maybe they wouldn't have to increase their spending as much as maybe Indiana if they were way behind Wisconsin. That we don't know. Okay. Penn State University. You'd have to imagine Penn State's been spending money the whole time, right? They're Penn State, for God's sakes. Their increase, 698.6%. 698%. They've almost doubled what they were spending on football.
Yeah, that's insane. That's a huge increase.
Right. Rutgers. They've gotten back to being okay, right? But they've been bad for a while. 500% increase for Rutgers in that time. Now, they spent that money, and it hasn't paid off. Nebraska, they've spent more money. Hasn't paid off yet either for them. 563% increase. Minnesota, they've gotten significantly better, and they've been able to hold the line of being better, not to the point of, winning something, but still 519% more. Michigan, you have to imagine in 2005, Michigan was one of the top schools in the Big Ten in spending, right? 577% increase. University of Wisconsin, dead last in percentage increase since 2005, at a grand total of an increase of 125.89%.
You would hope that it would be at least close to those other numbers if they're going to be dead last. Maybe like 450.
So they've doubled their spending in 20 years, right? These other schools are doing it at a 5-to-1, 7-to-1 rate.
Well, and doubling your spending in 20 years more so is just saying that inflation has happened and things cost more and things are just more expensive.
That's one way to look at it.
That's all they've done is basically just go with the times and change their values based on the times. These other teams seem like they're putting more money into it because their landscape requires it, and the Badgers just won't. That's so weird.
You tell me. I seriously want to know, is this really on Fickle? I mean, is it really? Now, I'm one of the foolish ones that was excited and celebrating, and hey, we're finally talking about a national championship. And here we go. McIntosh rolls out wheelbarrows full of money for his coaching staff. Wheelbarrows full of money for all the additional people they're bringing in for NIL, for recruiting, for this, for that, for everything else. All this money McIntosh throws at this thing to try to give Fickle all the resources, outside of maybe NIL money, to make this work. When you see something like that, me personally, it's hard to go at a coaching staff when clearly they aren't close probably to the top. Now, again, these aren't hard numbers of, Wisconsin is spending X amount of dollars, this year, and Michigan is spending X amount of dollars. We're just talking with increase of where they were. Now, if you're going to come at me and say, Sparky, what if the Badgers were the top spending team in 2005? I'd call you a liar. I wouldn't believe you. Not that I know. I don't know where they were. Now, if you were saying maybe they were a top 5 spending team in the Big Ten in 2005, maybe I buy that. Okay, yeah, maybe that's possible. Sure. Okay, maybe. And I'm saying maybe. Do I believe it? Not necessarily, but maybe. But even if they were top 5, they certainly aren't anymore because they didn't grow like everybody else did. I mean, look, even Iowa or Ohio State, 205%. You know they were probably one at that point, right? Illinois, 277%. Iowa, 206. The only one even close to them is the garbage Purdue program that's increased 134%. And they've had numerous coaches try and figure that thing out, and they've all failed horribly. That's the closest one you have. So we want to chant fire, Fickle, all that. I mean, you could only work with what you have and what you're given. And if the recruiting has fallen off and these aren't the same type of kids that they were able to get before, well, why is that? Because outside looking in, if you're looking just at stars, right? Isn't this kind of the same quality of players that Brad Bielema was coaching up? As far as how many 3 stars to the 4 stars and stuff like that, Bielema was coaching these guys up from 3-star players to potentially NFL players, him and his staff. That's what they were getting done. Fickle's not getting that done. So you can put that on Fickle. The problem is just eye testing, looking at this, it doesn't look like they're the same type of players. I mean, star-wise they are, but if you're just looking at it, it doesn't appear to be that way to me.
Well, when you're also looking at the head coach salaries of the head coaches in the Big Ten, Brett Bielema currently at Illinois is getting paid $6.65 million, while Luke Fickell is getting paid $7.725 million. So that's a whole $1.1 million difference between those two head coaches. If we go over to Kirk Cignetti, who you were talking about with Indiana before, he's getting paid $4.2 million. I think that's one of the biggest factors in all of this too, is that you're paying your head coach for a mediocre to bad football program $7.7 million when other teams in similar positions or sometimes even better positions,
right,
aren't giving up nearly that much money to pay their head coaches. So the university, of course, is going to look at that and say, you know what? Sorry, Luke, you're making $7.7 million. We don't have an extra $1 million to help spend on your recruiting efforts here. Sorry, dude. So yeah, you don't have to blame Luke Fickell in this because it's the school making the decisions. But when it's his contract that's directly influencing decisions here, which it kind of seems like it is, then that can also be an issue with him.
I want to know. You tell me. You tell Charlie. Is the issue Fickell or is the issue lack of funding from the program, from the university to put him in a better position? Because if we're just looking at increases, like Charlie said, that's just cost of living stuff. That's pretty much what it's been for 20 years. Cost of living, inflation. That's all we're talking about here. So again, we can put it all on Fickell. You tell me. Facebook and Twitter at The Fan Milwaukee. Nicolay Law, Fan Talking text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Sound off with a recorded voice message on the Odyssey app. Head into the Dugout chat. You can chat there as well on YouTube. Search The Fan Milwaukee. Already got a text coming in on the Fan Talking text line. Love the show. What's the song called to start Sparky's 2 o'clock show? That came in like 10 minutes ago. I don't know. But I'll find out in the break because I know the person that made our open. So I'll find out from him, and then he'll tell us what it is, and I'll let you know coming up after a quick timeout. So come on, is it Fickell? Lack of money? What's the issue in your mind? Nicolay Law, Fan Talking text line 414-677-1250. Plus on the other side, some breaking news from Major League Baseball a little bit earlier today that has a lot of people mad. We'll talk about that too. Coming up, Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the 1250 AM 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here. Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's. Sparky with you. Charlie using other side of the glass. So the 920 on the Fan Talk text line, Ryan in Tosa, texted back with his name, asked what song is it that we're using for Wisconsin Sports Daily's theme song, like the open to the song. So I went and asked our guy McD, who put the open together. I'm like, all right, who is it? He just emailed me and said it's Take It Off as the name of the song by Andrew WK, who I've never, ever heard of in my life. Take It Off, it's called, by Andrew WK. So Ryan and Tosin wants to know the name of our song to start the show. Charlie, said Andrew WK, do you?
I wouldn't say I know him. I don't know any of his music at all besides that song that we played in the intro there, and I don't even really know that song. But I know him from a show from when I was a little kid. And this show came out in 2009, Spark. Does that make you feel old?
2009.
And I was 8 years old.
See, so I was 33 in 2009.
So I was 8 years old, and it was a show called
here. Yeah.
Destroy, Build, Destroy, where it would take teams of teenagers, and he would have them split off into two teams, and they would literally destroy something, so like a car or a crane.
Like with bombs?
Yeah, or with their I think the kids would literally go out and destroy the things with bats and hammers and stuff at first. And then they would build it into something else, compete with those two things in some kind of challenge with whatever they built. And then at the end, they would blow things up with bombs. It was awesome. I loved it. But that's the only reason I know that guy. Yeah.
I don't. Oh, my God. So was it on YouTube?
It was on Cartoon Network when I was watching it. It's probably on YouTube now. You can probably find a few videos.
Really?
I think you should check it out. I think you'd like it, actually.
Yeah, I completely am not seen or anything. But my kid sounds like my kid may like it.
He probably would, yeah. Yeah, I think your 9-year-old would love it.
I think he would get into that.
Have a great time with it.
Yeah, so you'll have to text me the name of the show so I don't forget later, because otherwise I'll definitely forget. Now, so we're talking about fickle, lack of money, going to Badger football, and so forth, and what it is. I like I said before the break, we're going to get on to the Major League Baseball story we have. We'll get back to the Badgers a little bit with Matt Perkins from Believe in Badgers coming up at 2:40. Looking forward to him. So we got a few minutes here, but I'm not putting it all on fickle. I'm going to continuously say that I just don't think they have enough money coming in. And you can come at me like Tommy Wirtz does and say how much money the university brings in and so forth and all these numbers. None of that means anything. It doesn't mean anything because it's not their call necessarily at the end of the day how much push they get. The alumni and all of that they're going to get the money have to be willing to help with said money. The businesses and everything else that they're going to try and get more money into this, they need to do that. FedEx, for example, their home is in Memphis. They gave a bunch of money to Memphis football to help them redo their stadium. That it was and a lot, and they gave them NIL money on top of that to help recruiting. That was a whole big story down in Memphis that you had that. Who is that for Wisconsin? What chain, what significant company has donated that amount of money? 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, whatever the case may be. How much have we seen of that from Wisconsin where a company like Harley or somebody like that steps up and says, hey man, here's 15 million for the upcoming football season. Let's not suck this year. That would be cool. But again, I haven't seen that from anybody in this area. Have you?
No.
Not a single story.
No, but also, I don't know. There's not a FedEx. No. There's not a Nike. No. That help fund these schools and their programs. But there are other companies that are huge in the state. Like you're talking about Harley, Usinger. You could go to them. You could go to any of these, Miller, any of these companies, especially since you started selling alcohol in the stadium now. You might as well go and get a beer sponsorship at this point. Cheese, literally any of those things. You can go and at least try to get some kind of funding for the program, because I know some of those companies probably would give funding to those programs.
And you would think they've done all of this.
You would think so.
You would think they've tried all of this and they've been shut down and they're not getting anything. I just feel like
they can't be shut. There's no way all these companies are shutting them down like that.
I don't know. I'm just saying, the whole thing is very, very bizarre to me. I want to switch gears before Matt Perkins because I want to get this in. I don't want to miss this. So it broke a little bit earlier this afternoon. MLB has officially announced that the ABS system, so your automatic ball and strike calls for 2026 is coming. The question is, do you like it? And do you think it benefits the Brewers? We don't have enough time to take calls or anything like that. So we're just going to discuss it here. Maybe we'll bring this back as a topic in the next couple of days to give it more time to grow. But quick reaction before we get to Matt Perkins of Bleaving Badgers on the idea of this idea where now you can essentially challenge a ball strike call.
I've accepted at this point that it was going to happen, so I'm not really mad about it. I'm not really happy about it. I just knew it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to be this year right away, which is pretty big news. I'm excited to see how teams adjust to it. It seems like teams were really willing to adjust to the base size difference. We're really willing to adjust to the extra inning rules, all these different things, the pitch clock. They seem willing to make those changes. I want to see what kind of changes this brings along. That's my initial thought with this.
I think we talk about the Brewers. They're so young. Most of this roster has gone through coming up in the minors. They know what it is. This isn't going to be a shock to them. Some of these cats, maybe haven't, but they've seen it in spring training. They've tried it in spring training a little bit. So you've seen a little bit of it there. But I would say for the most part, most of this roster has experienced it game to game to game in the Brewers minor league system as they were coming up, or, Priester in another minor league system, or whoever we're talking about here. So I don't think it's a shock to the system. I think everybody pretty much has gone through this at this point, and I would assume it'll be relatively seamless outside of maybe the managers who don't have as much experience with it outside of spring training.
Yeah, I would say there's probably going to be a little bit of a learning curve for a guy like Pat Murphy in a situation like this, just kind of a more old school style manager. Right. I think with the Brewers, you're right. With a lot of these younger guys, they should be well adjusted to this. I don't know if that's all because it's just their minor league experience, but more so the way Pat Murphy has managed this team to this point is so that they make as much contact as possible, that they're not swinging at bad pitches. That's just their mentality already. This should be a pretty easy transition for their batters. Now for their pitchers, guys like Jacob Mizorowski, who already struggles with location, could be a problem.
Sports Talk on the Fan, presented by Paramount Plus. Sylvester Stallone is back in the original hit series Tulsa King. This season, Dwight faces his most dangerous adversaries yet, forcing him to fight for everything he's built and to protect his empire. Watch the new season of Tulsa King, now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus. Coming up next, we're going to get to Matt Perkins from the Bleaving Badgers podcast. And you can see all the videos up on YouTube with him and Matt Bernstein, a host of other former Badgers that join them from week to week. So looking forward to getting his thoughts on that clip that a tweet that we just went over. I sent that to him before the show and said, okay, I definitely want to get into this. I want to get into the idea of how in the world is this going to get fixed and how bad really this Badger team is. And is it the worst Badger the program that he's seen maybe since the Don Morton era, like people are talking about? We'll get to all of that coming up next. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the 1250 AM 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here, Charlie using over there, and you listening right there on the radio, maybe on your Odyssey app, maybe watching us on YouTube. Search The Fan Milwaukee. You can check us out there as well. Check out the videos. Check out the shorts. Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy. See Sparky Fifer with you. Charlie using other side of the glass. Speaking of Wendy's, you love Wendy's classic chocolate and vanilla frosty flavors. There's some big news. Our all new Frosty Swirls and now Frosty Fusions. It's the same creamy treat you've always loved, now with a flavor refresh. So what are these new flavors? Okay, well, we got the Frosty Swirls, as we all know. You have your chocolate or your vanilla base of Frosty. And then you have the brownie batter one, which is absolutely delicious. You have the strawberry one or you have the caramel one. I always tell people when you get the swirls, ask for extra swirl. They'll take care of you. And now they have the Frosty Fusion. So they took their game and upped it another level. You got the Oreo brownie Frosty Fusion. So pieces of Oreo in there with that brownie batter swirl. Caramel Crunch, so that caramel swirl with pieces of toffee. And then the Pop-Tart strawberry one, which is that strawberry swirl with like those little mini Pop-Tarts, strawberry Pop-Tarts that you buy in like snack bags, pieces of those into it. So clock in for sweet treat time with Wendy's all new Frosty flavors. A refresh on a classic. It's got to be Wendy's. Joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law here on Wisconsin Sports Daily, is friend of the show, Matt Perkins from the Believe in Badgers podcast. Check him out on YouTube as well. Him, Matt Bernstein, a host of other former Badgers. Follow him on Twitter at _Perko_. Matt, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get into a couple of different things here. Let's first start talking about the fire chance of Luke Fickell, because Barry Alvarez, we're not going to get to this today as far as doing a topic on it, but we're going to get to it tomorrow. Barry Alvarez last night on ESPN Madison on their show that they do was livid and said the Badger fan base is spoiled rotten, and if you don't like it, leave, and so forth. And he was furious about how that whole thing played out. Your thoughts on Barry's comments about the fire Luke Fickell chance?
Barry's the one who set the expectations for the team to be good. And if Wisconsin fans are spoiled, yeah, because you set up a culture and established a program that expects to compete at the highest level every year. And then when you don't compete at that highest level, people get mad because you're not meeting expectations. So I don't know what he was expecting the people to do, to applaud Luke Fickell for the product that's being put on the field. I sure wouldn't have.
This is the thing, though, when we talk about being spoiled rotten. In my mind, spoiled rotten means we've won national championships. We've won a bunch of Rose Bowls. We've won a bunch of Big Ten titles recently. Now we're having an off year, and now we're mad because we've been spoiled rotten. But realistically, this program hasn't been at that type of level of consistently going to Rose Bowls or consistently winning Big Ten titles really since Brett did it, 3 years in a row, lost all of them, but got there at least and was able to do that. Paul Chris kept this program at a top 25 level, consistently going to bowl games and so forth, and occasionally being there in that Big Ten title game, which was nice. But Brett really had it at its peak. Then maybe it dropped off a little bit with Chris, but still at a high level. And now with Fickell, they come in and they're talking national championships, and that's what this is going to be all about. And we're using the portal. We're not going to be a portal program. We're just going to use it here in the first year. And don't look now. Everybody is a portal program. Their portal quarterbacks have stunk out loud, and they can't stay healthy. So literally nothing that he has touched, I don't think has gone right. I mean, I guess you could say Tressel has been okay at this point, but I don't know if I'd say his defenses were that of Jim Leonard defenses. Offensively, the offensive coordinator, they had to part ways with him, Longo, and now they've been getting Grimes, who lasted in Kansas all of 1 year, so who knows how long he's here for. Like, literally nothing has gone right for this head coach since he's been at Madison.
It doesn't help when the administration isn't spending the money on the football program like the rest of the competition. So, yeah, there have been some not great coaching hires, especially at the coordinator and position coach levels. We also how well the air raid did.
Right.
But they haven't invested in the front office portion either. And every big time football program has a proper GM, and this entire recruiting staff of 30, 50 people. You look at Georgia, you look at Alabama, you look at Ohio State. And Wisconsin, it wasn't that long ago that they went 9 months without a recruiting coordinator, without anyone in the recruiting department. And that was during the Paul Chryst administration. But that demonstrates to me the athletic department's misunderstanding of the fundamentals of the college football landscape in the 2020s.
I have a text message that came in our Nicolay Law Fan Talking text line. Tell me how much you agree with this. From the 414, we're in a bunch of trouble because when Paul Chryst was coach, our recruiting coordinator left for Michigan State, leaving us with 0 people in the recruiting department. Ironically, that recruiting coordinator, when he went to Michigan State, had a staff of 10 people, so they had 10 people on us to our 0. What say you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was referencing, the Saeed Khalif situation.
Yep.
And so it's not just Fickle. This neglect has been established by the athletic department, before Fickle arrived, but I think it's been exacerbated by the complete removal of all of the Wisconsin loyalists and all the people who worked in the department who were Badgers, right? Who knew the alumni network, who knew the former player network. And that's been pulled out. There's not nearly as much alignment with or investment in former players coming back and being around the program. And you couple that with some bad luck at the quarterback at health and just a lot of shuffling of coaches. And you've got this mishmash and just a mess of a product on the field.
Talking with Matt Perkins, Believe in Badgers podcast. Check him out on YouTube as well. Him and Matt Bernstein do a great job. Have a bunch of former Badgers on all the time, former guys that were in the NFL, all kinds of different players. It's a great deal. Check it out. Follow him on Twitter at _Perko_. So since you're tight with these guys, is there some type of angst or disappointment or anger or emotion towards the guy running this whole thing in Chris McIntosh, since he is one of them and has eliminated all of the Badgers, I guess, inside of the program, it sounds like?
Yeah, I mean, Casey Robach's sort of the only one left standing here at this point. And from the people I've talked with, yeah, there's a lot of anger and consternation and feeling like the administration has abandoned them, as former players, unless you are one of the really, really, really big names.
Like Watt?
Yeah, like if you're JJ Watt, if you are, Melvin Gordon, Monte Ball,
Dane.
that stature of player, you're still welcome back. But whereas under Chryst and previous administrations, former players who maybe were walk-ons and barely ever saw the field were still welcome back at any point to come to the field, to come to the games, to be part of the game day. And that is not happening nearly as much anymore. And I know that is a direct frustration I've heard from former players. And then the product on the field obviously is not something they enjoy watching because of not just the wins and losses, but getting, ripped apart on the ground, especially last year when I think when Iowa ran all over Wisconsin to the tune of 365 yards or whatever it was last year. That was a low moment because Wisconsin has always had the backbone of a defense and especially a good run defense. And that when you said, Treschel's done a good job, I would push back on that. I thought that he's adapted the scheme this year. This year, the run defense is significantly improved.
Well, they got a bunch of 300-pound guys. Last year, they had 2. This year, they got 9 on the defensive line.
Exactly.
On
so
that
you
roster.
Can say that he's adapted there, but it took into year 3 to make the realization that, we're playing in the Big Ten. We might want to have some big, thick bodies on the defensive line, because we're going up against, 1,600 pounds of beef on the offensive line for every single one of these teams, plus a blocking tight end who's usually 6'7", 260.
So when Chryst was here, not to the level of Bielema or Alvarez, but there were still guys going in the National Football League off of this roster. I don't feel like Fickle really has had a bunch of NFL caliber guys on this roster in his time here.
Whose fault is that?
That's right. But we go back to, and I asked this question at the front of the show. Is it Fickle's fault, or is it the fact that they're just not getting the funding they need to compete at the level they need to compete at? Because you could talk about 3 stars and 4 stars. Well, Chryst had a bunch of 3 stars and 4 stars. So did Bielema. But those guys got coached up into being maybe those great level NFL level caliber players. But even if you just watch that Badger Maryland game, these 3 and 4 star guys they got now do not look like the athletes that they had prior, in my opinion.
No, it doesn't even look like the athletes that Maryland has as their true
Correct.
freshmen. That was one of the things that angered me about the discourse coming off this past weekend. Make excuse for the offensive line. Oh, like they have 3 redshirt freshmen, starting and playing. I'm like, great. They're getting their butt whooped by true freshmen on Maryland's side. So what does that say? And so if, I think that there is some young talent on this team. I think that there are a couple NFL guys on this current roster. I think Vinny Anthony, most notably, is definitely a Sunday player. Why he doesn't get the ball earlier in the game. It took to the second half of the Alabama game to get the ball in his hands. It took to late in the second quarter, I think, against Maryland to get the ball in his hands. He's a Sunday player. If anyone's watched him play, he's a Sunday player. He's got great hands, got an amazing release off the line. Different story for a different time. But the people brought in through the portal are not those types. And so whereas Wisconsin was used to building those guys up for 2, 3, 4 years after they got in to the program, the strength and conditioning program, and learned under the previous generation, these portal guys come in and get thrown right into being starters, haven't developed. And
I'm guessing that's how
any sort of like sense of team.
Yeah, but Matt, I'm guessing that's the only way you can recruit him is by just telling him you're going to play right away. We need help, so you're going to play right away. Yeah, you may go to Michigan and sit for a year or two. Here, you come to Madison, you can play right away. And if you don't like it, you can always leave in the portal, but we think you'll like it and we think you'll stay.
I mean,
isn't that the recruiting pitch at this point?
I think that's the recruiting pitch to everyone, but I don't know if you're a program, Wisconsin, who's not going to, if you're not going to spend the money, you're not going to get the talent. You're not going to retain the talent.
Correct.
Retain the talent. And you look at the Xavier Lucas situation and how that was handled by all parties involved. Not just him, not just Miami, not just Wisconsin, the entirety of the situation.
Right.
Part of that is financial. A big part of that is financial. And if you can't retain the top talent that you have, you're going to just be stuck in this churn.
At the beginning of the show, I read this tweet. I sent it to you about percentage increase spent into the football program. Now, we don't know what the base number was spending in 2005 when this thing started, and we don't know where the
we do.
You do have it?
Yeah. Okay. So actually we do. So on that on the tweet that you sent me before the show, in the replies, he actually has the base. And so in 2005, UW-Madison spent $21,993,983. In 2024, it was $49,682,268. So in 2005, they were $9 million above the Big Ten conference average, which was $12 million. They were $21 million. So right, that is they're 70% above the Big Ten conference average. Last year, the Big Ten average was $58 million. Wisconsin spent $49. So they're below the Big Ten average by 20%.
And like Indiana, look at the huge jump that Indiana's made with Cignetti. And you just wonder, like, is that a lot of the spending going on there too? Because they had a huge increase of 500% from 2005 to 2025.
Well, they were spending nothing on their football program also, to be fair, back then, right? Because they were purely a basketball school, and they have strategically invested in football, but especially under Cignetti. They have buy-in and alignment with coaches and alumni and donors, and they are clearly doing something right. Because, we all saw what happened to Illinois this past weekend. We all saw them make the playoff last year. Yes, it was against a pretty weak schedule, but they still won the games they were supposed to win, right?
They're
they still
legit.
won all the games they had to win. Yep. And so I think this year they look like an excellent team. I love Mendoza as a quarterback. I loved him when he was at Cal. He's a gamer. And I think that team could go very, very far this year. Also because they play with a chip on their shoulder, and they play with the chip on their shoulder that the Wisconsin Badgers used to play with. And it doesn't feel like the product on the field currently has that same, I keep using chip on your shoulder, right? But that's the only sort of metaphor that I can think that comes to mind right now. And, I'll give a quick plug for our show that we released yesterday I've never heard Bernstein rant like he did on our show yesterday about how upset and disappointed he was with what we saw on the field. And there has to be more guys who actually really care just about putting on the motion W and going out there and playing like it and not having it just be a paycheck. Because that's what it is, it feels like at this point.
There he is, Matt Perkins, at Believe in Badgers on Twitter. Follow him at _Perko_. I'm telling you, Believe in Badgers is a great podcast. Him and Matt Bernstein do a great job. Bring back a former Badgers, a bunch of former Badgers, as well as they have guests on every week. Matt, thank you so much for coming on, man. We'll hook you up again down the line.
Appreciate it.
You betcha. Take care. There is Matt Perkins joining us here on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Coming up next, Rick Schlesinger, Brewers president of business operations for the Brewers, joins us at 3:20.